1, 2, 3, 4.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen.
That's right, the big dick is here. Get ready.
This is the Tastemakers.
May we start?
What is up, y'all? Happy Tuesday. Welcome back to another Tasty Tuesdays talk. And I am Zebra. I have another wonderful guest with me today. He's a retired Army Master Sergeant. His name is Brian Nelson. How you doing, Brian?
Doing well. Thank you for having me on the show.
How are you doing today?
Had a long Christmas celebration, and with the family and everything. You know how it is getting together with family. It's kind of chaotic, but you're happy that everybody's together. And but we got through it, and now we're just kind of on the flip side, waiting to
People usually get through it.
Yeah. Do New Year's.
So how has been your retirement? How long have you been retired?
So I've been retired for about a year and 3 months so far.
And you did 20 years?
23.
23 years. So what we can talk about it, but how has been this last year of retirement for you? Has it been freedom?
So, I mean, there's different ways we can attack this subject, as I would say. Me personally, it's been pretty eye-opening in that I've had a lot of time to think about like who I am as a person, and maybe the direction that I want to take my life in, because for a long time, excuse me one second, just so I can get closer, when you're in the Army for like a long period of time, like I was, the Army is your identity, right? So what happens when you strip away that identity, and based on to mental, I guess, soundness of the person, they can go different ways, right? So some people, it's an easy transition. Some people, it's a really hard transition. Me personally, it's been pretty eye-opening, and at the same time, it's much needed decompression.
And you went in at how old?
I was 19. So I went to college, I partied a lot, and not every young man makes the best decisions when they're in college. Had a pretty strict upbringing. It's not like I suffered or anything. It just, I wanted to kind of venture out and do what I wanted to do. I've never been one for, I don't like authority, which ironic. I joined the military, but basically college didn't work at that time in my life, and I was kind of given the ultimatum, like, you need to get a job with health insurance because I pulled out of college, or you need to like join the military. And so I chose the latter because it was my choice. I wanted to be my choice.
So how was that? Where did you go? Did you go to, one of these recruitment offices, like in the mall?
I always had an inherent desire to want to do something cool, do something big. I always wanted to do that. And the military was always kind of glamorous because
I did G.I. Joe.
Yeah, that's how
you watched that.
I grew up. Yeah, watching stuff like that, and I thought it'd be cool to do something
18.
Special. Yeah. And so that being said, a lot of people, maybe people are smarter now than I was. I don't claim to be a genius or anything. I literally went in the office and
just a recruitment office?
Yeah. I know I didn't want to be a Marine because everybody was telling me Marines are brainwashed, but it's the toughest and all this stuff. But I really believe Marines are brainwashed because my interaction with Marines, and it's not to take from Marines because I love everybody in the military and they all have their purpose. But it's just not the mentality I wanted to be raised in. And so I saw a poster on the wall of a guy, a paratrooper, and they had all these guys in parachutes in the background, and he was taking a knee, and he had a rifle, and he had a beret, which is funny because he had a beret after he jumped on the drop zone. And in actuality, if you're in combat and you jump you're not going to jump with a beret. It was just for a poster, right? And I'm like,
Green beret.
No, it was a maroon beret because
maroon.
maroon's for airborne. And
Okay.
I told the recruiter, that looks cool. I want to do that. That's it. And then he like literally he smiled. He's like, airborne ranger contract, infantry.
Is it a smaller percentage of people that actually do the full 20 years?
Yeah, roughly. I do my own podcast, and so we do a lot of statistics and stuff on our podcast. And the last time we actually looked that up, it's roughly less than 4%. So veterans account for less than 1% of the U.S. population. Out of the veterans that actually go to a full 20-year retirement, it's only like 4% of the entire military, all 4 to 5 branches now, if you count Space Force or Coast Guard's part of Homeland Security. But anyways, so only 4% actually make it to 20. It's really small.
Small.
Yeah. So
in that 20 years, I don't know. I mean, it'd be a lot of information, a lot to talk about, but is there any way you could sum up that 20 years of an experience? And I mean, it's probably very difficult because
absolutely.
I mean, you went all over the place, all over the world.
Yeah. So let me give you a little background. Let me give you background like what I did. So I came in on an airborne ranger contract. A lot of kids like want to be hardcore and do the high speed thing. I went to.
Let's do like age time frame.
Okay,
can you do it that way?
Yeah, sure. So when I was I entered the military. I came in on an airborne ranger contract.
Mm-hmm.
You go through basic training. One, it's called OSUT. So it's an acronym for One Station Unit Training in Fort Benning for infantry guys. So like people would say grunts, infantry guys. I was on airborne infantry or airborne ranger contract. And so then I did 13 weeks at Fort Benning, basic training, and I passed that. And then I went straight to airborne school, which was 3 weeks at the time. Yeah, 3 weeks. But I had like a 2-week layover between that. But 3 weeks of airborne school. And then upon airborne school, I went to ranger training, which they called RIP at the time, which was Ranger Indoctrination Program. And I did that, and I was stationed at 3rd Ranger Battalion. And but I only was there for like a year and a half. So I'm like 21 years old after a certain period of training. And I got released from medical. I broke my right tibia, and they just released me, and then I went to Korea from that, So like they sent me to Korea, and then
to do what?
Do infantry stuff, right? Because the sad part of it, when you're in the military, all the esprit de corps camaraderie, that's kind of self-driven within the people that you surround yourself with. But at the end of the day, too, the Army is, I hate to say, it's kind of like a business, right? If you're not fitting the business model specifically, like I hurt myself over in the Ranger Regiment, and I just wasn't going to make myself useful to them. They just like, hey, there's young blood. We'll get more people. If you want to come back, try again later down the road. So
they just ship you off to another country.
Yeah, they just sent me to Korea, and then I went to an infantry unit there. And as I said before, I always had a desire to do something better. I never liked being like, oh, I'm just an infantry guy. It's cool, So I did the infantry stuff there. Korea's a ridiculously rugged terrain. A lot of mountains, a lot of hiking and stuff like that. And I found the only airborne unit in Korea at the time, Long Range Surveillance Detachment, LRS, and I did that. So it's kind of like a cross between infantry and military intelligence. And I did that for almost 2 years. So 21, 22, I did that. In the Army, we say PCS, Permanent Change of Station. I went back to the States, 82nd Airborne, did a lot of airborne operations in the 82nd, and a lot of people that watch movies know 82nd Airborne, 101st type stuff. Did that, and then 9/11 kicked off. I didn't get shipped out immediately during that. Did a couple years at 82nd, then from 82nd, actually, I got shipped back to Korea. because what a lot of soldiers do is they get married. And there's some circumstances that happened. I had to relink up with my wife at the time, and so I went back to Korea. My wife's Korean, so from there on, I did for another 5 to 6 years. I did infantry stuff, and then I went from back to Fort Riley, Kansas. I went to Columbus, South Carolina. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I did all that stuff. And then there was a point in my life where I was at 10 years. I'm like, this infantry stuff is like rough.
But what are you doing during this time? I mean,
I was
just training the whole time.
Yeah, I was just
training for what? I mean, 9/11 happened.
Yeah. So a
that,
lot. So I for 3 years I was at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, basic training guys.
Mm-hmm. So you're training. You're basically a boss.
Yeah. So not. It was training soldiers.
Okay.
To put them into the army. So it kind of just it was a matter of circumstances. Mm-hmm. I got thrown around here and there. I didn't immediately get sent off to Iraq or Afghanistan at the time, and they had me train soldiers down in Fort Jackson. But at Fort Jackson, I was at like 10 years. So I bounced back and forth from unit to unit, and not everybody goes at the same time, right? So then at the 10-year mark, I changed my job to I wanted something more tangible. So I became an interrogator. So interrogator, we call it interrogator source handler, basically in the Army.
That was going into your 11th year.
Yep.
And then that's how you finished the rest of your career. And then during that latter half of your career, you were deployed.
Yeah, I've been to.
You're interrogating. I mean.
Yeah. So
who you were interrogating?
So we interrogated. So my first point when I came back to brag for the second time, we went to Iraq, and
so that was your first deployment to Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
Iraq.
Yeah, and
this was in your new profession.
Yep.
With the military, so it'd be the interrogator, and then
and
assigned to.
Oh yeah, so I was at 18th Airborne Corps, Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and I don't want to get too much into the specifics because honestly, most people aren't going to really relate to the organization. I mean, I think
no, but what I mean is you're there to interrogate who,
terrorists. Oh yes.
Terrorists.
Yeah, terrorists.
Okay, that's what I'm.
So
I don't know if it's donkeys or
yeah, we're there.
The locals, or you're trying to find out information.
So the joke we always talk about is hearts and minds, right? Mm-hmm. We need to win the hearts and minds. So essentially, as being an interrogator / source handler, you're basically asking people of foreign countries to commit espionage against their own country. I mean, that's just straight up, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't sound good, but that's just what you're doing. And you're asking them, or you're trying to manipulate them to turn in their comrades, they're turning their family that are bad, people they work for that are bad. And these people are risking their lives, and you're training them to do that too as well.
But they're working for you then.
Yeah, essentially. That's
and
where.
What do they get out of it?
Oh, we paid them. We paid them. We try not to go to money first, because you don't ever want somebody to be dependent on money, because then they would just do they'll half-ass the job and then you pay them, and you're like, hey, that's not what I asked. So you want, part of our job was to kind of determine what their source of motivation was, and once you find that source of motivation, you manipulate that and exploit that. I know it sounds bad, but that's just what we do. That's business. That's how you win wars, basically using their own people against them. And so that's what we did. We interrogated prisoners, or detainees, not prisoners, because they're not prisoners of war, they're detainees. And there was a lot of operations that we did that, through methods I can't talk about, that we gained information from. And once you gain this type of information, we write up reports called intelligence information reports, and they get published and they get sent throughout the whole intelligence community spectrum. Going as far as the CIA, the NSA, even the FBI and stuff like that. And so that was like one deployment. We did that, and I went to Afghanistan. It was a different game. I was manipulating and exploiting like high-ranking officers in the Afghan army that were corrupt. But this time I was working for the Defense Intelligence Agency. So the army actually put me on loan to the DIA. You know, it's the defense. It's the intelligence intelligence organization that reports basically on DoD, Department of Defense requirements. So like CIA is like everything. DIA is strictly defense, right? And so I worked for them for almost 4 years, and we did a lot of exploitation on Afghan, corrupt Afghan leaders, basically in the Afghan military. Now, the people that we were supposed to work for, but that were doing bad things with like taxpayer dollars, stuff like that. So
this is pretty much what you did for the last 10 years of your career. And then where did this information, this information solve anything, solve any problems, issues, or, or is it all for...
So, I did a lot of good work. I'm not going to, let me say it this way. I believe that the work we did saved lives and helped transition the countries that we were trying to assist at that time to a state that we wanted to gain. Like whatever, if we just wanted more land in the country, or if we wanted to control or have inside knowledge on something, I believe a lot of the operations that we conducted helped do that. However, if you want to ask my personal belief now, after the fact, that we gave Afghanistan basically back to the terrorists, do I think it actually really did anything? I think it's to me it's disappointing, a lot of stuff. Like for us to just give back a country to the terrorists that we were trying to fight against, it's like my personal opinion, it's like spitting in every person who went to that country. It's like spitting in their face, you know, and the thousands of people that have died, you know, why did they die? If we were just going to give the country back to the people we were fighting to take it from, then why did we go in the first place?
For anything.
You watch movies of, right? And I'm not trying to hype it up. It's just like movies are made of the things that we did.
What would be something that's accurate? Like that's made on television or made as a film in the past?
So, I mean, like Black Hawk Down, right? Black Hawk Down, I think, is one of the most accurate movies out there. You can't give the ins and outs of the sensitivities of the classifications of information. However, it was a pretty accurate movie of how things went down and who was involved. Like you had Army guys, Army Rangers, and then you had Army Delta. Army Delta doesn't exist. Right? They don't exist, but there's a movie called Delta Force. Everybody knows about Delta Force. They're like the top tier of Army Special Operations. That being said, that was pretty accurate. And those guys in those movies, I worked with a lot of that stuff, like towards the end of my career. So,
but most, what would you say? Most movies are just, it's way... far out there, Hollywood, over the top.
No, let's talk about Hurt Locker. Hurt Locker won an Academy Award.
Yeah, that guy that would do deactivate the bombs. Right?
Yeah. That movie is bullshit.
Totally fake. But that guy's based on true events.
No, wasn't based on true events.
I thought they used to say that. Or no, maybe not.
No, wasn't based on true events.
That guy's not a real character.
No.
I always thought it was.
I mean, him leaving the fob at night, trying to find somebody. He's trying to hunt some guy going, no, you can't do any of that
Maybe
stuff.
that's why I won Academy Award, because it is so...
Now, yeah, I say I was a company man, and I do believe in a lot of the mission. However, as I think a professional gets older, they realize like some things that they're doing may not be, how do you say that? That they just realize like some of the stuff we're doing is kind of crazy. Why are we doing it? You know? And so,
But you're never supposed to second guess that or question it, right? You can't.
no, you're not supposed to in the military. You're
Do your
Yeah, there's times when you're just like, man, the commander's a fucking dickhead.
Mhm.
Like, he's making these crazy mistakes. However, he wants to get promoted, so we're going to keep doing this,
Mhm.
and that's pretty common. But what I was trying to allude to is, as I got older in the military, I started questioning a lot of stuff we did internally and realizing, like, maybe drinking the Kool-Aid, as we say, drinking the Kool-Aid, taking the red pill, I mean... or it would be the blue pill, actually, in this case, if it's Matrix.
Mhm.
Just like believing everything you hear and see is not like, it's not like absolute, right? It's
Mhm.
for somebody else's agenda. That's kind of like what I kind of started coming to. So I've done a lot of big and great things in the military, and I'm proud of the stuff we did. However, there did come a point where I'm like, man, some of this stuff is just like, it's not in the best interest really of the country. You know, it's just like, it's somebody's ego is getting in the way, whether it's a commander, a senator, a congressman, or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And anybody who served 20 years in the military, and I don't care what any veteran says or any person in the Army says, I mean, I'll say straight out, if you serve 20 years in the military and you don't get any college done, you're a dipshit.
Mhm.
Straight up. Because you have time.
Mhm.
Nobody's deployed 20 years straight.
And then it's all covered too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't
Especially when you're in,
Yeah.
you know, the military is college tuition. Everything's paid for. Everything. When you're out, it's different. But so when you're in the military, you have an opportunity to get at least, you should get at least an associate's. But if you don't get a bachelor's degree after serving 20 years in the military, I guess there are the ones that are like, I was a warrior 24/7. I was lifting when I wasn't training, and I was shooting when I wasn't on duty. I'm sure there's guys like that. They're far and few, but if you have 20 years in, you should have at least a degree. And a lot of the people I've served in, especially in special operations and the intelligence field, people have master's degrees, PhDs, and stuff like that.
But being 20 years, doesn't that count for something?
Yeah, it does.
I mean, it's a job.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm just.
But let's be honest.
Mhm.
Let's on it. So once again, I was fortunate in my last unit. I got to attend a lot of different seminars and symposiums that actually prepared us for when we got out. And we actually had a Forbes 500 guy come by and give us the real deal. He's like, "Your 20 years in the military doesn't count for shit." Straight up, he just told us that.
Who was this guy?
It doesn't matter. He was a Forbes 500 guy.
Oh, Forbes 500.
Yeah.
I didn't catch that.
But
Yeah.
he just told us, like, your 20 years doesn't count for shit.
Was he in the military?
No.
Oh, okay.
But he was actually
as a business
from a business perspective.
perspective.
Yeah. And he's like, that PTSD shit, don't even talk about PTSD because that will actually deter people from hiring you.
Yeah.
Even though they're not supposed to, right?
Yeah.
They're not supposed to.
Yeah,
but
there's other applicants, so they could just hire someone else.
It's a liability, right? So he kind of gave us the real deal, which is like, yeah, thank you for your service, but 20 years doesn't mean shit. And he's like, however, you have time, I can guide you. And so, yeah, you're right, 100%. 20 years in the military does account for like project manager type level stuff. You have opportunities to get certified in project management, Sigma 6 or whatever. I don't know all they have Sigma 6, yellow belt, brown belt, all that stuff is for business. And so you can get those certifications as you're getting out. And that 20 years does account for managerial, like middle management to upper level management certifications. Now, does the person take the opportunity to get that? That's another question. And then another question to that is the unit going to give them adequate time to actually get those certifications as they get out? So, like, I think my time in the service, my experience, yeah, it was great, 100%. And I got.
Would you say your situation is different? I mean, like I said, every experience is different, but you keep on saying you're very fortunate.
Yeah. But I only say I'm fortunate because of the
ending of it. You can prepare for,
but also my inherent desire to be driven, right? Like,
right.
If I had
complacent,
if I had no desire to drive and keep getting. I mean, I could have had a mediocre like experience and like, man, 20 years, 23 years sucked. I just like did infantry stuff. And there's guys like that. There is a lot of guys. And my personal opinion is a lot of the guys that I know I'm probably going to get a lot of flack is you see a lot of veterans that are proud and they're just, I don't want to say brainwashed, but they've drank the Kool-Aid. They've gotten out and they're like, I did 20, 25 years of infantry, ground pounding. I was a sergeant major and that's all I ever did. And they can't speak on anything else. But I jumped into here. I did this combat mission, but they can't, they can't relate to anything else in their life. Like, it's just, to me, that's kind of sad because they were not fortunate enough to
like you said, they get their best years up.
Yeah. And so it kind of,
that's hard to, you can't get that back, but it's hard to let that go.
Right. It's hard to let it go, and that's all they have. And we kind of talked before earlier, like you said to me earlier before we did this, like people have unlimited amount of potential, right? And so I see that with like a lot of veterans, like the military has so many opportunities to do things, and it's very easy to fall into like
20 years can go pretty fast too.
100%.
And then you'd be like, oh, it's like you have a dream, and the next thing you know, you're 40 and you never did what your dream was. But
like in the private sector or professional field, you can continue like 40 years. You can keep doing it.
That's the positive thing. Like, say you could have retired at 39, you are still on the younger ladder of age.
Yeah.
Technically, you could go to school. I mean, it's not, even if you're 45, you're still on. I mean, younger. I mean,
I remember when I was like 27 in the military, and I was pretty senior, and I had younger soldiers like, "Hey, Sergeant, you're old." Like, you're old. And then when I hit,
maybe that's just mind games.
Yeah. But then when I hit like 30, Sergeant, you're old. When I hit 40, like, Sergeant, you're old. You need to get the fuck out. And
who's telling you this?
Just younger soldiers. Yeah, like, oh my god. Because remember, I'm 43 and born in 78, and we didn't have like, was it 1994 is when we had our first computer in the house and stuff like that. And so I Gen X guy, but kind of on the cusp, right? And then I'm serving with soldiers that joined for 9/11, and they know nothing but technology.
Yeah. So since you said that, we can talk about it really quick. I was just wondering, what do you think how the military is going to change with technology? I mean, it already is, right?
Yeah.
But moving forward, knowing how fast technology advances, what do you think though it's going to be like drastically different, or is it going to be less, people on the ground, more technology, or more computers?
So this is a good question. During my time in the intelligence community and with the DIA, let's just put a few things out there, and this is not to it's not to detract from or try to divert or sway a certain audience. I'm not trying to do that. I'm a guest here, but there's a few things that we need to establish. There is a systematic threat to national security. I know national security is very vague and it can be used in many aspects, but to whether it's cyber, to finances or economy, from, let's just say, China, Russia, and Iran. I'm not saying they're bad. It's just their agenda, right? Their militaristic agenda, the military agenda in those countries do not coincide with the agendas with the United States, right? Because these are all big superpowers that are trying to be on the top. And so just by virtue of that, China wants to be on top, Russia wants to be on top, Iran wants to be on top. So we're all like spying and doing stuff on each other. Okay, so we know that. So when I say threat, I don't say, oh yeah, all Chinese people are bad. I'm just saying military wise, right? It's a threat because we're always probing each other. We're a threat to them.
Because
So-
we want to be the best too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're always trying to sabotage or like spy on each other. That's just the nature of getting ahead and be technologically advanced. So that being said, from when I first joined to now, 97 to now, cyber is really big now. Like they're, in Space Force, it's funny. Space Force has been around for a long time.
Cyber warfare, they call it. Or
Yeah, but-
is that the-
Well, Space Force is when it was established. I don't know the actual command statement, mission statement, but I know a lot of it is basically to protect the United States interests in outer space, whether it's our satellites or whether it's a foreign country trying to launch missiles into space and attack us. We're trying to establish a defensive perimeter in space for our interests, right? I'm sure there's more to it than that. So yeah, you have Space Force, and cyber is going to be really big. Now, as we know, last year we pulled out Afghanistan, and over 20 years in Afghanistan, trillions of dollars, taxpayers' money was wasted. We didn't even go into fraud, waste, and abuse in this entire podcast, and the United States, in my personal opinion, I'm sure you could say as well, is they don't have any tolerance for another long-term war, right? Because 20 years of just war has crushed the economy. It's helped rich people get rich. Let's just be honest. Rich people got really rich because of war, and then it put a strain on the economy. That's it. Taxes went up.
Okay.
So why is that important? Nobody wants to go in another war. So how are we going to fight future wars? I mean, like you said, technology. It's actually the most cost-effective way to do it. I can't go into the details specifically of what's going on, but yeah, drone warfare, future like robots,
Clones.
Yeah, I wish. I don't know.
Yeah.
I want to know if there's clones.
Or AI, right?
Yeah, so
Some forms of AI.
absolutely, but
Your phone brainwashing you.
yeah, and yeah, that's a whole podcast in itself. But yeah, I think the future of warfare is going to be more drone, cyber driven, just because that's the game that these other Russia and China are playing.
So it'd be very beneficial for people that are more computer savvy or technology savvy to join the military.
Yeah,
Right?
for the U.S. government. But if a person who's like a white hacker, black hacker, gray hacker, they're going to make more money private sector.
Oh, yeah, makes sense.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah,
very...
companies, big companies, corporations.
So how many patriotic hackers do you know, So, yeah,
Okay.
I think future wars are going to be fought in the technological field, absolutely. But you're always going to have physical people to go in to verify and validate,
like your job, interrogators is always going to be
Yeah.
always. You always need interrogators.
Yeah, when you capture a person, Because, I mean, I think...
you can't, interrogate someone on the computer. Like, hey, you got give me your information.
Or have a robot do it.
Yeah. I think we covered a lot. And
Yeah, absolutely.
We're about out of time, so thank you so much for sharing your story. And, do you recommend people join the military?
Yeah, 100%, yeah.
Yeah.
I think if you have a drive to serve the nation, I know we use serve very loosely.
But do you think that should be the number one drive, right? If you want to serve your country, shouldn't it be? Or or does it matter? Doesn't matter.
I don't think
Because that could change your mindset later on and be like, oh, I really
100%.
like doing this.
But I think if the only thing you have in your head is like I'd like to find a way to serve our country in one form or another, I think the military is a good place to start. It's not the best, but it's not the worst. Let's just be honest. I'm sure there's better ways to do it. I'm sure there's safer ways to do it, but it's actually, in my opinion, an honorable way of doing it as well. But everything's subjective at the end of the day.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you for having me.
All right, thank you, Brian.
All right.
You're listening to Tastemakers
with Zebra and Jeebs.